So there are two baptisms. There is a baptism of water, which we see and we know, and this happens all the time. Baptism of water is really just that, right? The word baptism comes from Greek. Baptizo means to take a bath. And that's what the first baptism is. It's getting wet. It's you saying, God, I need you in my life. I'm looking for you. I want to find you. I want to live a Christian life. I want to reach out. I want to get to you. And then there is a second baptism, another kind of a baptism. This is the baptism that we typically only do in the Lutheran Church. There are times that the first one is done, but almost always and exclusively we do the second one, which is not anything that we actually do. The second one is the one where the Holy Spirit comes. It's the one where the fire that was over the tongues of fire at Pentecost over the apostles. It's the one where God acts. It's not the one where we say, I'm coming to you, God. It's the one where God says, I'm coming to you, humans, people, to welcome you, to forgive you, to make you a part of my life. And this is obviously the better of the two baptisms, the one where God wants to come to us. And for what it's worth, and this is important, I think, I'm not being polemic here. I'm not saying that Lutherans are the only ones that have this. I'm just trying to make a distinction here between two different things, that there's this thing that happens at baptism where God comes to us. And when that happens, when Christians are baptized, that's the start of God's work, the start of our life in Him, in Jesus, that is. And our life is supposed to reflect Christ's life. And what we read today is the starting of Jesus' ministry. And so we could continue on, we could keep reading through the gospel, and we could say, okay, well, this is what Jesus did. Does this look like what we're doing? Does this look like the church? Does the church look and do the things that Jesus did, all the things that He did up to and including and beyond His death, up to the cross? If you could imagine a world where the church actually did all of the things that Jesus did, I think it would be a very different world. And the reason I know that we don't do that, well, I think if we look, we can be clear, if we're honest, if we reflect. But one of the things that I hear often, and maybe you hear it, I'm a pastor. People always tell me their life story. I get a cup of coffee, and they ask me what I do, and then I hear all their whole life about them and Jesus. And the people behind me are getting mad. Anyway, this is what I hear. Maybe you've heard this. I'm spiritual but not religious. Anybody ever heard that one? Yeah, heard that one. How about this one? I believe in God, just not the organized religion. Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right. So what those are lies. Those are lies. Those are big, fat, honking lies. And they're truth. Big, fat, honking truth. See, the first truth is that the church doesn't act like the church should look and act like. And so people give an honest assessment. They look at the church and they say, that is not something that I want to be a part of. If you could imagine, if we could actually live like we were supposed to, if we could be the church like we were supposed to, people would look at the church and they would have to admit, you know what, I can't deny what that Christian church does. I can't get with their God, but I can't deny what that church does. Then that would expose the lie that they tell themselves, which is, when they say that I'm spiritual or that I'm religious but I don't want to be in the organization, what they're really saying is they don't want to have anything to do with Jesus. But the church is such a stumbling block, so they can point at the church and say, well, it's the church that makes me not want to have anything to do with God. Which is to say that we can become the cause of people's sins. The church, the thing that was created so that the world might know God, ends up being the very thing that can push people away from God. That is the definition of sin, when you do the opposite of what God has intended to do. This happens because of what I call counterfeit Christians, cherry-picking Christians, a la carte, C&Es, consumer Christians. There's all kinds of words for these, and I think if we're honest, we are that, right? There isn't a single one of us, there's nobody listening to my words right now who hasn't fallen into that category of, well, I'm going to take this but not that. I'm going to like this and I'm not going to like that. And if we're honest and we have a true assessment, then some hard truths are going to follow. And the reason they're hard is because they challenge what we think to be true. That's why they're called hard truths. That we have to maybe think about our life in a different way. And so, from now until Lent, we're in a season called Epiphany. I want to do the hard work of embarking on a journey of reflecting of what we do as a congregation, as individuals, and how our life with God looks. I want to examine ourselves so that we can understand who God is, that we might as Christians bear His marks in this world. So I want to start with a misconception. If I were to ask you real quick, right, the first thing pops in your head, who is God? Sure, nobody said fear. You should have. That should have been the first thing that popped in your head when I said God. Should have been, oh no. Right? Like, bring your depends, oh no. Like, this is God, I'm going to die, oh no. And I thought about bringing all the Bible verses. There's lots of great Bible verses, Isaiah and Revelation. There's all kinds of things. But I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to proof text because it should be self-evident. What I want to do is I want to maybe give you an example, right? We're all good people. Nobody goes around slaughtering animals except for, when it's acceptable and good, right? Hunting is a good thing, right? And we all like our chicken. But when you walk around and a squirrel sees you, does that squirrel wave at you? Does it come up and cuddle underneath your chin? No, the squirrel runs away. Now, you're not an evil person. Why did the squirrel run away? The squirrel ran away for a few things. The first is that it just doesn't understand you. It has no concept of who you are. It's a squirrel. It can't understand you. And because it doesn't understand you and it knows that you're so powerful, it runs away. It's not that you're evil or that you're looking to destroy it. Has anybody ever killed a squirrel? Okay, yeah, good, eaten. Good, all right. Okay. But you don't go around slaughtering them, do you? It was something you did, you were hunting, whatever, that's fine. And that squirrel doesn't know, by the way, what you would have done. All this squirrel knows is, I am afraid, I gotta go. And so it finds whatever tree or wherever it can to run away from you. This, to it, all-powerful thing. Well, that should be our relationship like God. It is in the same way. The crux of our relationship with God is, and this is what stems a lot of problems, is that we see God as this benevolent being up in the skies who is satisfied if we happen to manage to fit Him into our life, even in the smallest little bit. The reality is, compared to God, all the people of the earth are regarded as nothing. Do you believe that? Because that's the truth. That compared to God, nobody's worth anything. No one is entitled to heaven. No one is entitled to salvation. No one is worthy of any of it. You ever do the dishes and you get the sprayer and you spray off the dish and it all came off right away and you didn't even have to get your hands wet? I love that. I get mad at my wife so often she makes eggs. Ashley, just rinse them. Just rinse them right away and you don't have to get your hands wet. Right? Just blast it with that water. And it's all good and then your hands stay dry and the dishes are done. This is what we deserve, and God admits this. Everybody knows of Noah and the flood. That's what was happening. God turning on the sprayer and cleaning it off because it was just one who was worth it, him and his family. Everybody else, whoosh. That's the reality, that nobody is worth it. None of us. That God is so important, so valuable, so awesome, so glorious, that anything that we would amount to is worthless. But you tell yourself, and I tell myself, but I'm valuable, I do some good, I bring good in the world. Don't I do good? I'm a special snowflake. Some people, I know I'm a powerful person, I'm a connected individual, I've got things going on. No, none of it. 50 years from now, most of us will be dead. Will anybody remember us? Do you remember who the president was 50 years ago? I mean, that was a really important guy. You might remember LBJ. I had to look it up. Thank God for Wikipedia. I don't know. I was thinking like Nixon or something. Okay, but look, think about it. Okay, so you know that guy. How about the governor of Florida 50 years ago? Anybody? Big, special, powerful guy, right? Whole state. How about the mayor of Jacksonville? Anybody? Did Fleming Island even have a mayor 50 years ago? Okay, so at least we know that there wasn't that guy. So if you can't even think of maybe the governor of Florida 50 years ago, think about you 100 years ago, 100 years from now. Think about you 1,000 years from now. God is infinite. We are nothing more than a grass leaf compared to God, and I have killed lots of grass leaves in my time. I cut them down regularly because they're so inconsequential. Truly unintelligible why God would ever want to get his hands wet to clean us off when he could just hit the sprayer and be done. Turn on the hose and everything is nice and easy. The slate is clean. Why in the world God would bother to come and care for us? Why he would bother to be a human, subject himself to all of the things that we do to each other, to come into our world, to be us, to be baptized by John so that he might get wet in that dirty, stinking water is unintelligible. We should be seeking him. We should spend all of our time and all of our effort calling out to God saying, hey, where are you? We want to see you. We want to do for you. We want to be for you. And he's coming to us? That doesn't make any sense. We should be destroyed regularly. 21st birthday, we should stand up in front of Jesus and you should go, well, psh. Next. But in our baptism, at the Eucharist, he comes to us. The most important thing we can do as Christians is to have that hand in front of him and have it bodily put into us. The most important thing. It's hard to be a counterfeit Christian when the essence of worship is encountering God and we worship him. He comes to us and he grabs us and he says, you are mine. Why would he submit to us? Why would he come to us? I cannot tell you. He is an infinite God. I do not understand him. And the logical thing to do would be for us to go run and dig a hole and hide. But for whatever reason, he still finds us and he comes to us and he says, I love you. I'm going to act in your world. I'm going to move in your life. This Eucharist, the baptism, there's a word for these things collectively. We call them sacraments. It breaks down into two Latin words. Sacer, which means sacred. That's where we get the word sacred. So holy, and ment, from mentum. Like momentum, to move. It's a holy movement. It's God acting in our life. That when we're baptized, it's not just a bath. It's God actively coming into our life. And when we take the communion, when we take Eucharist, the Lord's Supper, he's actively coming into our life. There is nothing more important. And so, for the next few weeks, I want to spend some time examining how it is that something that is so important can be so easily sidelined. I want to talk about what it looks like to be a Christian. What are the marks of a Christian? Are you allowed to drink, smoke, and cuss? Are you? Oh, yeah, stay tuned. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Because the line isn't so clear. It's not so obvious. If it were obvious, then we would just have, let's say a list of 10, and we would just follow that list. So we're going to have a hard look, and I hope that we can get to an understanding of who God is and how God has already acted in our life. But I want you to understand from the outset something very powerful, because you can't go forward with God until you understand at least a little bit of who he is. And the thing that we need to understand is that God is so loving, so unbelievably loving, and how we absolutely have no deservingness of that we don't earn it, that we can't possibly be worthy of that love that He gives us. In fact, we should be fearful that He might ever take that away, because to be in His presence should be the most scary thing in the world. And yet somehow He comes to us every Sunday, that He puts His presence in our life, and rather than being afraid and running away and not wanting to have it, somehow we still seek Him and He seeks us. And that His presence in our life should leave us dumbfounded and speechless.